part of being self-sufficient and self-reliant on the homestead is fixing and repairing projects, like fixing a barbed wire fence. We've got a whole bunch out back where trees have fallen on it. So let's get to it. Alrighty, let's get this fencing repair project underway. Come here, buddy. Here's all our tools that we'll need for our fence project. I'm going to use this come along to stretch the fence rather than an actual fence stretcher. The splicing ferrules. This is the ferrule crimper. When the teeth are fully closed, there's still a little bit of a gap there. You can see the gap. It doesn't close all the way, and this crimps the ferrules. And you really can't do it by hand. You need this tool. 2 vice grips to hold onto the fence with the come along, and a good old wire cutter. Always wear gloves. It's very important to protect your hands when you're working on farm projects, especially when you're working with barbed wire fencing. So here's the T-post. This is 5 strands and the top 2 are broke off. I'm not sure how they got broke, if somebody cut them or if there was a tree down back here. Hard to say. But it needs to be repaired. Top 2 strands broke off. And they've been laying on the ground quite a while. So one thing you can do is check your strands. If it's a clean break and it was fairly recent, you probably could stretch them and just splice it together. But unfortunately, this fence has been laying on the ground for so long, it's pretty rusty in spots. So even though the 2 ends are close together, I still don't think I could stretch this and make it fit. But I'm going to have to cut out a chunk. These are the ferrules, the little crimping tubes. Here's a roll of barbed wire. So I just slide the ferrules on the old fence, work in the section of new fence from the spool there that I'm going to splice in, and I just double it up several inches, and I like to use 2 ferrules. Officially speaking, you just need 1 ferrule, but that's me. Double them up, so I've got 2 ferrules on there. Then I use my crimping tool to crimp them down. 2 crimps on each ferrule. And this is where there's no tension here right now because I'm just putting in a section of filler. So there's the double crimps on the 2 ferrules. Now we get the other section of fence. And we put the vice grips on. Depending on your come along, 1 foot, 2 feet, 18 inches, something like that from the end. Clamp it down tight. Then you clamp on the other strand. Hook up your come along, using the vice grips to hold the clamp. So you have the vice grips and you put the claw thing from the come along on the other side of the vice grips. Then you ratchet it down, start tightening it up. What you doing? You being a good girl? So here everything is all ready to go. The ferrules are on. I've stretched the wire. And the key thing when using vice grips and the come along is to get the wire as straight as you can get it. With a regular fence stretching tool, it would hold the wire perfectly straight. You got to do a little angle play when you're working with the claws from the come along and the vice grips. But you can arrange it so that the wire's pretty darn straight. And you just give it an extra stretch. If you have to, remove some of the wires that hold the fence to the T-post on either side, and that way you got a little more fence to stretch with. This is the second wire from the top, so I'm not super concerned. Once everything is crimped in place with the ferrules, you just let off a little pressure from your come along. Loosen it up a little bit, and then you can just let go of the vice grips and remove all your hardware. One vice grip, and then the other. You helping me with the fence? That's the fence right there, yeah? Then you have to attach the barbed wire to the T-post to hold it in place. These little wires just bend around, just a simple setup to hold it in place on the T-post. And here's the top wire, double crimped on 2 ferrules, a new strand with the old strand. Then the same thing, put the vice grips on the other end of the old strand that was broken with the new strand, and just tighten her down. Uh-oh, vice grip not tight enough. Didn't have that vice grip clamped down to the strand quite right. Let go on me. So we'll try her again. Now sometimes, actually almost every time I was doing this, you have to take a barb off of the wire so you have enough room to work with the ferrules. They're just twisted on there, most of it, depending on what kind of barbed wire you have. This wire, they just twist on. So you just loosen them up and you can just slide one off to give you more wire to work with for your ferrules. And here we go, we got the wires in. Everything is nice and snug. We give it a little extra push. Click, and then we just make sure everything's nice and tight. Our 2 ferrules. And this is the top wire, so definitely want to be a little more concerned with this one. We want it good and tight when we're done. So we just clamp down. 2 crimps on each ferrule. If you don't have this tool, because I tried it just using vice grips, and you can't crimp them tight enough. And this has the perfect opening in the jaws, so you just cramp it down all the way tight, and it's just right where it's supposed to be. And it holds the wires good and snug. They will not pull out. So if you have to repair your fencing, get the tool. And then loosen this up. Let a little pressure off, because it is really sprung tight. And then you can remove the vice grips. And pop the come along off of there. And you got the top wire all repaired. And it's nice and tight. See, it's vibrating there. It's good and snug, not sagging at all. Right where it should be. Yep. Then use one of the holder attachment gizmo things to position the wire and hold it in place on the T-post. Can't remember what they're called. The wire holder in placer things. Bend down that other side. We're good to go. How do you fix your barbed wire fence? Let me know in the comments. This bottom wire, this is the very, very bottom wire, and it's broken the tree. The tree grew around it, and it broke loose on one side. So here's a section spliced in, the old wire, the new wire, with 2 ferrules double clamped like we've been doing. And I had to cut the other wire on the other side out of the tree so that I could slide the ferrules on. And then bring this new section over. So I actually, all these repairs that I've done, I actually need 4 ferrules. Hey, Bonnie. Because I've got 2 ferrules on either end of the old wire with a little piece of new wire in between. So we put our come along on there, same that we've been doing. Vice grips on either wire. There we go. So vice grips, come along, wire straight, give it a good stretch, really snug it down. And then our 2 ferrules there. Make sure it's as tight as we can get it. And then there it is, 2 ferrules, double crimped. On the come along, holding it in place, and look at, boy, that's like a guitar string, nice and tight. Bing, 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 bing. So there you have it. Living self-sufficient and self-reliant on the homestead is project after project after project. It's a lot of oak trees around here, and with the big rainstorms and the windstorms, the branch drops and stretches or takes out the barbed wire fence, so we're always fixing and repairing. So you can do the splicing if you want, but I prefer to use the splicing ferrules and the crimping tool. All right, living happy, fun-loving, and carefree on your homestead. Live life DIY.